Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming to this media announcement today. I called you in to talk to you about keeping a level of transparency and accountability within this agency and to this community. We had an incident transpire back in January before I took command involving a use of force incident with one of our deputies. This was related to Deputy George Sobrano. We were notified through the Public Defender's Office related to a potential violation of policies and related to use of force. And we looked at this thing. And I thank the Public Defender's Office for actually bringing this to my attention, as I had just took command, and this occurred before I was actually the sheriff. And we instituted and launched an internal affairs investigation. There was much cries from the public to ensure that justice was held and that we did not allow for any type of abuse to take place from our law enforcement parties. And we finally had an opportunity to conclude the internal affairs investigation, and it went through its process. Our professional standards committee had an opportunity to present an option or a recommendation for what they thought would be the appropriate discipline. The professional standards committee had recommended a 30-day suspension for Deputy Sobrano's activities, as the violations was of a violation of use of force, discretion, and conformity to laws. That recommendation found its way on my desk. I also looked at the pre-disciplinary hearings in terms of what was stated on behalf of Deputy Sobrano, and taking that totality of circumstances and looking at everything in a full, comprehensive manner and being objective, I could not support a discipline action of 30 days of suspension. And so he was terminated under my command, under my orders. We cannot allow for a small fraction, that 0.001% of deputies who may step out of line, who may violate policy, to be reflective of an agency of 5,500 employees. And so I talked early on about taking full responsibility and accountability for actions that may have occurred before I was the commander of this agency, and ensuring that the public would understand that we will be transparent. We are not going to sidestep these incidents when they take place. We will not turn a blind eye and act as though we did not know. When they come to my attention, our command staff will hold people accountable. And so with that, I'll take a few questions if you have them.
Sure. Why do you feel as if the 30-day suspension is insufficient enough?
Again, it goes back to looking at the totality of circumstances, from the internal affairs investigation, the comprehensive analysis that was put together through the Professional Standards Committee, the comments in the pre-disciplinary hearings, and then looking at this thing in terms of what was the environment, what were the circumstances, what occurred. And looking at all these things, I could not agree with a 30-day suspension, where I've already had a similar case where we had a young deputy who was on probation, who struck a gentleman in handcuffs, and I immediately terminated him. And so staying consistency, not only for what my expectations are as the commander of this organization, but I would say also what the expectations are from any law enforcement organization.
In this case, Sheriff, you had a lot of evidence. You had more than just, the victim's statements in this case. You had the actual body cam footage. How much did this weigh into this decision because you saw what happened?
Well, this is part of that conversation that I've had numerous times with the public about the importance behind body cam footage and how it serves beneficial on both sides, right? It's not just a matter of protecting the law enforcement organizations, but it also have an opportunity to protect those people, in this case, that may have been a victim by law enforcement. So, again, all these evidence, forms of evidence that were available was compelling for me to make a good decision on this one. Anything else?
Yeah, sure. So, with respect to making a statement here and I guess in comparison to previous administrations, can you speak, is this different from the way this office has operated in the past?
I think it's crystal clear it's very different in that we are taking the proactive approach of analyzing and looking at the things that our deputies are doing in the field. When they're in compliance with policy, then I'll step forward in front of this microphone as well and tell you that. But when they're also outside of compliance with policies and protocols and expectations, then we'll definitely step forward. And my goal from the entire command staff element is for us to find these things on our own. The public defender, and on a rarity do I have an opportunity to say thank you to the public defender's office, but I thank them on this case for bringing this to my attention so that I can hold my people accountable. But we are focused on finding these things as they happen and bringing them to the public.
And from a public's perspective, it's obvious from a law enforcement perspective, but from a public perspective, can you give us a sense of why it took 10 months to come to this decision?
There's always the internal affairs investigative process. And, you know, I've heard oftentimes about it takes too long, it's taken too long. But the way policies and protocols are currently set up, we will continue to have this kind of long-standing process. But I will say this, we already looked at what we can do better. What things can we institute to perhaps make this a much more expedited process so that the public doesn't have the perception or we introduce an appearance that we're holding something or hiding something. And so we're not there yet in terms of being able to disclose what we are going to institute in terms of modifying and changing procedures. But once we finalize and get everything concrete, I'll present what we're going to be offering to the public.
Sir, what do you say to the man who was punched?
What do I say to
What
the
do you
man
say
who was
to the
punished?
punched?
Well, look, I'll say this to the public. The behavior and mannerisms of which Deputy Severino had exhibited is unacceptable. And anytime that type of event occur, I'm going to hold everyone accountable. All right, so thank you very much.